Welcome to our breaking news today. What is it all about? You just seen it on the title there. Did Harley Davidson go woke? Should the CEO be fired? Today we're going to give you as much evidence that we have gotten and tracked down. We've also going to talk about everything that's going on with Harley Davidson, from shipping out bikes to shipping them overseas, whatever the heck is going on with them. Stay tuned, because we got the answers coming up for you.
There you go.
So if you've never been to our channel before, we're all about motorcycle rallies. We cover them all over the United States. We just spent 8 weeks in Sturgis during the rally. What day did we get there?
June 10th.
And we left?
August 13th, I believe.
That just lets you know that we were there, because that's one of the questions we're going to bring up today, that there's a lot of people out here on the internet that's relying on people that said this, that, and everything else, and it's not true. There's a lot of propaganda that's coming up on the internet, and people are not giving you all the factual information to help you make a true decision. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about this, and at the end we'll kind of tell you where we're thinking at, but stay tuned all the way through this, because you're going to learn a lot of different things. We've done a lot of homework.
A lot of research.
Yep. And we're going to give you a lot of the facts and tell you what's kind of going on with Harley Davidson. So starting off, what got this all going is a gentleman named Robbie Starbuck, which is actually, I never knew the guy. He's got like 1 million subscribers, so he's definitely has a very successful channel. But he actually changed his name. His name was actually Robbie Starbuck Newsom, and he was from California. Now, I'm not saying there's any relationship to Gavin Newsom. I think he actually went after him a couple times, but I don't know. I'm just kind of curious why he dropped Newsom, but that has nothing to do with our video today. But what started all this is, you got to think back to Harley Davidson had their homecoming in Milwaukee on the 25th through the 28th, and Sturgis was the 2nd through the 11th of August. This video just so happened to come out on July 23rd of 2024. Just several days before Milwaukee.
Isn't that a convenient coincidence?
That's right. So, we're going to talk about that too. We're going to talk about clickbait, a lot of different things that are going on YouTube. We're not going to say that this person is doing that or any of the other people that are putting videos out on this topic. But it seems to be everybody is just jumping on the bandwagon, and we need to fire the CEO, we need to do this, we need to woke, we need to just do all this crazy stuff. So we're going to talk about it today and give you some real evidence of what's going on. So we're just going to go through a quick run through of what we're going to talk about today, so you kind of have an idea of what you're going to hear today and what kind of evidence we're going to bring to you and where we got all this stuff from. So that way you can see it. We're going to be flashing stuff behind us. We'll be flashing stuff in front of us so you can kind of see what it is. We're going to tell you the links you can go to find some of the information we have, which is kind of curious that these people that put out all this information about Harley Davidson doesn't give you any of that information. Also, 2 of the things that they put out, one of them, which I have paperwork here from 2023, and the document that he showed on his video was from 2020. Not saying that. Also, there's a place where the CEO was actually talking to, like a talk show, and it was actually a company
that he previously worked for.
That's right. So was he talking about Harley Davidson, or was he talking about the company he was working for at that time? Or is that just his thoughts in general for everything? Don't know.
Could be.
So we're going to go through that. So first we're going to, some of the things we're going to talk about today is, one, we're going to talk about the Harley Davidson's response on social media. We've been kind of waiting on this because we have talked to several different people. We have contacted corporate Harley, we've talked to some vendors, we've talked to some dealers, we've also talked to some employees that are still at Harley Davidson. So we're going to try to give you as much current information as possible. One of the things that I want to do before I get too far is, I don't know anything about Robbie Starbuck, other than I think he ran for some kind of office in Tennessee, and then he tried to sue the state, and then he dropped the charges. I don't know. I don't really know anything about this guy. I kind of looked at him, but I mean, it just seems like he's a social media guy, and that's, other than that, I don't know anything about him. Don't know what kind of jobs he had or anything else, any experience or anything. But I'm going to tell you my experience, and that's why I'm going to give you the expertise that I know. Now, we haven't been riding Harleys for that long. We got our first Harley
2007.
Okay, so we haven't been in the Harley family for that long, but we've had about, I don't know, 8 bikes now, maybe 9 different Harleys that we've had throughout. We've only had 2 brand new ones. Most of the other ones were all used that we bought. The second thing that we did is I have been riding motorcycles since I was 14 years old. So I've got motorcycle experience. So I've been, that's basically giving you about 50 years now that I've been riding motorcycles.
You're giving
So,
your age away now.
yeah, well, that's the way life goes. The other things that I want to let you know about is I used to be, my previous job before I retired and started doing this for you guys, was I worked for a company called SoCal Gas out of Southern California. It's actually a Fortune 500 company. They cover 20,000 square miles. We have about 6,000 employees, very similar to what Harley Davidson has. And during that time, I was a shop steward, I was a regional officer during that time, and I was president of the union, which was a full-time job. I got pulled out and I did this full-time. So I have dealt with corporate America, I've dealt with CEOs, I've dealt with politicians. This is all in California, so all those politicians you may hate, I have dealt with them. So I know a little bit more about them than you know about them, but we're not talking politics today. So that's just to kind of give you a little bit of a background that I've got. Also, during that time, I had 2 negotiations with the company on contracts that we signed and ratified. So we'll talk a little bit about that because Harley Davidson is a union company. They actually have 3 unions on the property. They have the International Association of Machinists, they have the Aerospace Workers, and they have the United Steelworkers, which covers, like I say, somewhere their employees. Now, this has nothing to do with dealerships. Dealerships have nothing to do with corporate. So there's also a lot of things that have been coming out saying that corporate tells them they have to do DEI, they have to do all this, they have to do all that. They don't have to do none of that. What corporate does to the dealership is they tell them the hours they need to be open. They tell them the products that they need to sell. They tell them if they're allowed to have products that aren't Harley Davidson, how much of that percentage they can have. So that's kind of how they do it. And of course, they want them to make money. They don't get, there could be, which I never asked them, if there's a franchise fee. Sometimes there's a franchise fee that the dealership has to pay on the total amount of what they sell. But it's possible they may not because the motorcycles are bought from Harley Davidson. The clothes are all bought from Harley Davidson. So the idea of possibly paying a franchise fee may not be possible. We'll have to check with our dealers and we'll let you know back on that. But very possible they may not be paying franchise fees, which one of them will probably call me after the video and let me know for sure. So that's kind of one of the things we just want to kind of clear up right away, that when we're talking about this, we're talking strictly about corporation. We're not talking about any of the dealers. The dealers can do what they want. They have no control over what the CEO says and does. And some of you might say, well, I don't understand. Well, the problem with now corporate America, which we'll get into in a little bit about corporate America, is that they kind of run the show. They tell the dealerships what they want. They might show up on their property and change something or do something like that. But other than that, all they want to do is buy a bunch of crap and sell it. Other than that, they even have now, they used to have meetings that they actually flew to Milwaukee and did. Now, pretty much corporate everything is Zoom to save them money. And we're going to talk about money too soon. So we're going to start off with, first off, we're going to let you know we are not a fan of the CEO of Harley Davidson. We actually met him last year at the 120th. Harley Davidson invited us out there, kind of gave us the red carpet treatment. And we still paid our way to get out there, but they gave us all the places to get in without having to wait in line and get some seclusive things. We actually got to sit in a meeting with Karen and Bill
and Paul, James, and the CEO.
Yeah. So we got to sit down with them and listen. Couldn't film anything. And I was which I don't know if I'll get into a lot of what he said, but we'll see how much time we have on the video. Maybe we'll talk about that at the end. But we tried to approach him, which I always let Tam approach people because usually a lot of times a woman can get a little better than me coming up with a camera. So we met him they were actually having the parade that day. He was up there and had been talking to some people. So we stepped back and she walked up and just introduced herself and stuck her hand out. And there it stood. He had his arms crossed. Did he ever shake your hand? So pretty much blew us off. And then you came from the Asian descent. And they came up and, oh, yeah, now he's hugging on them and taking pictures with them and all this. So in our case, like I say, we don't have a really good run-in with him. Karen and Bill, we've had great response with them. They're great people. A lot of the other corporate people that we've dealt with at Harley Davidson, we've had no trouble with. They've been very helpful. Him is a different story. So we just want to let that go right off the bat as we talk about this stuff, because you're going to people are going to start sending me messages saying, you're woke, you're woke. No, all we're doing is giving you the information and the facts. Because I think a lot of you don't really understand what's going on. You just think it's kind of like Bud Light. So one of the things we'll talk about, well, I didn't go through my list. So we're going to talk about the board of directors. We're going to tell you what their jobs are. We're going to tell them Tam did a whole big research on all these guys. We're going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly about them. We're going to talk about the union, and I'll tell you about the stockholders and the shareholders meeting. We're also going to tell you about
DEI, which stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
We're going to talk about human globalization, which is one of the things that Robbie had talked about that we want to bring out. We're also going to talk about redefining capitalism. What is that? What is the progressive work environment? And all this is going to include a whole lot of stuff that we're going to go over today. So here we go. We're going to start off with, we were in Sturgis during the motorcycle rally. We were there longer than anybody else. And what we do, if you've never seen our channel, is we work all day long getting content.
Information.
We talk to all kinds of people. If you go back and watch our channel, you'll see we've talked to everybody and anybody that's important during the Sturgis motorcycle rally. Plus, a lot of subscribers and a lot of people that are just riding bikes. So we're there to give out information. That's what we do. We're not there to drink. We're not there to party. We're not there to have a good time. We enjoy what we do. We love to give information. We love to have the contacts that we have. Just like here, we're able to get a hold of corporate Harley and get some information from them. And that's one of the reasons I waited for the letter to come out. We heard it was coming out. I wanted to be patient and let them write out what they wanted to say, and then we'll go forward with that. So here we'll get into it. So we were in Sturgis before anybody else showed up, unless you lived there. So we see what's going on. We've seen all the apparatuses all being built up there on LaSalle. So they have the big giant Harley Davidson display that comes from corporate. That takes up a full city block. Just one block over, about halfway down that block, is the Indian display, which they were actually with Jack Daniels. And we're going to talk about that. And we're going to flash up some video and show you what we see. Now, we weren't really, I don't know when I seen this Robbie Starbucks video. So when we walked into the Harley display, this was on Monday, I had no intentions of filming this to show you how many people were there. Just as I walked through with the camera, and it was just, I do that. I take B-roll footage. I just don't know if I'm ever going to use it or not. If you go back and watch Cycle Drag, he was actually there on Thursday during the rally, and he actually took a shot from standing out on the sidewalk on LaSalle, shooting back and showing you the actual people that are there on Thursday. So when we walked through, the reason we went to the tent was a couple of different reasons. One, we were looking for somebody in our marketing that we contact through Harley Davidson, and she wanted to get a spray-on tattoo, which is a whole nother story. So we did that. So as I walked through with the camera. You're going to see this now, and you're going to see that, there could be anywhere from 50 to 100 people there, all throughout the display. The other thing was, when we got done with that, we're walking up and down LaSalle Street, trying to show everybody the stuff that's going on LaSalle Street. Then we go down to the Indian tent. We go to the Indian tent, and how many people would you say was on the Indians' property?
Maybe 20.
So we'll show you that now. So that's coming across, and you'll see also they're with Jack Daniels. They had a whole lot of tables set up there. It was really cool. I thought people would hang out there.
They had like a little place where they had a one-man band, I think, came in at certain times of the day. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of people there. But you have to, again, it's all stretched out. It's almost a city block, each display, the Indian and the Harley.
So what our point is to show you that there was people at the Harley Davidson booth. There was people at the Indian booth. If you wanted to go talking woke, why would you not say maybe Indian was? Because they had less people there. So we're just going to leave that there because we wanted to just show you that there was a lot of people. One person actually came on Facebook and was writing all this stuff about there's nobody there. It's like the Budweiser last year, which was true. The Budweiser display that was actually across the street from this, how many people were there did you see?
Not many.
Most of the time, none. The only time they had anybody there was
when the Clydesdales were there.
That's right. So you could tell for sure that was a situation where they were saying it was woke and everybody stood up and said, nope, we're not going to patronize them. They had a Budweiser display, which really wasn't a display, but they had one down at Loud American right next door. And people were showing the same thing. We're showing pictures of nobody there. It was closed during the day. It only opened up at night when they had the concert at Loud American. And we can show you that too, which I have to go back and look for it. If I got it, I'll put it up. If not, but it was packed. There was no place you couldn't get a seat. We walked in there several times trying to get a place to sit, and on both sides it was packed. So people weren't woken Budweiser. So just a FYI on that. So we just wanted to kind of make that clear right off the bat because just like I say, this person was on YouTube or on Facebook writing me a comment, and they were writing something about, oh, there's nobody there and da-da-da-da-da. Well, I wrote the guy back and said, are you even here? And he goes,
what difference does that make?
Yeah, what difference does that make? And I'm like, well, how can you tell me there's nobody here if you're not here to actually visually check it? Oh yeah, I could go by at 6 o'clock in the morning, there's nobody out there either. Go by there at 7 o'clock in the morning, there ain't nobody there. Go by there at 8 o'clock in the morning, there's nobody there. I think sometime between 9 and 10 they open up. Same thing in the evening. And somebody said the same thing. Why do they tear down so quick on Saturday? They do that every year. All the vendors pretty much clear out as quick as possible on Saturday. Some of them are already tearing down on Friday night and they're gone. Once again, it's stuff that we know because we monitor the rallies from start to finish. So that's a little bit about telling you about Sturgis. And if you have any questions during this time, you can put them down here and I'm happy to answer anything that I know or things that we could find out. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the response that Harley Davidson sent out. Because a lot of people, that's the most current thing that came out. We're just going to go through and give you just a little bit of the highlights of it. I'm not going to read the whole thing. We're going to flash it up here. And there was a woman, I can't remember her name. She's got a really weird last name. It's like Tajana or Tanzana or something. She was in charge of this DEI. And so what ended up happening is she left several months ago. And in one of these videos, I don't know if it's one that Robbie Starbuck put up or who put it up, but they tried to say she's still a current employee because she looked at Lincoln. We looked at Lincoln, and I should have wrote her name down because then I can't go back and find it. But she is not an employee. She's actually working at a different firm now. She's at a whole different company. So that's one of the things that Harley Davidson said was at this moment, they don't have diversity,
equity, and inclusion.
They don't have that going on because they don't have a director for that. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to go into the meaning of all this so you understand what this is. To ensure the alignment of BERG'(S) with the business moving forward, we will be providing executive management to each group to exclusively focus on professional development, networking, and mentoring. Okay? And sponsorships. They kind of went through the sponsorships and said they're going to start looking at the people that they sponsor. Maybe they should look at what else they do. And we're going to talk about a couple of the groups that they've sponsored that ended up they've been doing something else, and that's why everybody's saying they're woke. So that's kind of that way. You can read that. We've got it on our YouTube channel. I've also got it on our Facebook page under Bob and Tam's Excellent Adventures. You can go there and you can read the document. You can print it out. This did come from corporate Harley. At first when it came up, somebody just sent it to me and I wasn't sure where it came from. The letterhead didn't have an address or nothing.
Just had the bar and chill.
Well, this was put on Harley Davidson's X page. So that's where I ended up finding it before corporate called me back and said we sent it out. So they put it on there because everybody that's social media is the ones that are complaining about all this. A lot of people that don't know anything about social media don't know anything about it. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about that. The next thing we're going to talk about is Tam is going to go through, well, let's back up a little bit and go through my experience of dealing with a corporation. The problem that we've had with corporation probably for about the last 20 years. For instance, the company that I work for, SoCal Gas out of California, used to be the CEOs back when it first started out. You had to be a meter reader and work your way all the way up through the company. So by the time you got to the top of the company, you knew all the jobs that were kind of going on at the company. That's how you became CEO. Well, that all changed. Now they actually hire people that a lot of them have engineering degrees. 99% of them don't know a squat about whatever manufacturing they're doing, just like at the gas company. You would just imagine the nightmare we had when they came out with new products and we sat down with the company and their engineers and tried to tell them with 40-year employees, that can't be done. Come on out to the field in the hole and we'll show you it can't be done, or you can show us you can do it. Which they can't because they don't have the training. So that's one of the things I want to let you know, that this isn't just Harley Davidson has hired somebody that doesn't have really anything to know about motorcycles. You know, he does ride some bikes, but I mean, does he know anything about production, building bikes, anything else? Probably not. But so does a lot of these other corporate people. What CEOs and the board of directors have one job. Their job is to look out for the stockholders, and that's it. So typically there's people that are below them, just like we had at the gas company. We had different management people and executive people and stuff like that, that we had a proposal from the union or the company had a proposal they were bringing to us. They came in the room. They had already got it ran by the CEO and he okayed it. Now they got to push it through the union and make sure we agree to it. So that's the problem that we have with a lot of this, because a lot of people think the CEO is running the company. He's really not. He is at the helm, and if something drastically happens, like this probably came out on the 23rd. He probably didn't know till Sturgis was over that they even told him it happened. Because after we talked to him, he doesn't really have anything to do with social media. And I know why.
So he says.
Yeah. So we'll leave it at that. So that's the first thing that I want to let you know. And I know this because I've dealt with the corporate level, and I've done this for 8 years with the corporate of there. Plus, I also dealt with other corporations, PG&E. I've dealt with other unions. So we're going to talk about unions in a little bit because that's going to clear a lot of things up that people think is going on in corporate. So at that, Tam is going to tell you about the people that are on the board.
So the CEO, of course, is that Jonken Zietz, and he's from Germany, and they hired him in. He was formerly from Puma, the shoe company, and that's where he came from, and corporate hired him, Harley Corporate, because he'd raised their stocks up for Puma. So that's their whole intent, was to get their stocks to go up. So some of the people that are on the board of directors, most of them look okay from what my research I did. Norman Limerg, he is 61 years old, he's an American, and he was the former CEO of Cummins, and he's retired now. Jim Farley, which I didn't know this, he's cousin of Chris Farley. He's 62 years old, he's an American. He was born in Argentina. I think his dad was just down there at the time. And he was CEO of the Ford Company. And Sarah Levinston, she's 73, American. She was part of MTV Music when it came first out. Catapult Studios and Club Mom. She was in a couple different things. Couldn't find much on her. She seemed to be fine too. Mary Rose Sylvester, she's 59. She's an American. She did General Electric. She was on the board of directors there, and an ABB group, and all kinds of platforms for General Electric and lighting. So then Troy Alstein, he's an American. He's from Washington State. He was on the CEO of Starbucks. He does Oceans 5. He's in a lot of environmental things, trying to keep things green, things like that. He seemed like he was an all right guy too. And Rolf, R-A-L-E-F, I don't know if you say that right, Masood, he's 45. He's an American. He was born and raised in Maryland. He is with Royal Caribbean Group. So he's like in charge of all the big party ships and the cruise liners and things like that. The only two that I couldn't really find a whole lot on, Jared Doudeville. He is with the H Partners Management, which is an LLC group. I could find nothing on him. I could find nothing on this H Partners Management. They have a website, and it's got H Partners LLC, and then an email, and that's it. There's nothing else you can click on the website. From all my research, anything I could find, it's just some sort of real estate investment company. I don't know.
And how much stock do they own?
They're the second largest, this H Partners Group, and the stockholders. Vanguard was number one, and this H Partners Management was the second highest stockholding group. It's all under the Dow, or the New York Stock Exchange. So that's the biggest stockholder, and then all these subsidiaries are underneath it. The only other one I could find that I didn't really care about his background was Alan Goldston, and he's 57 years old. He's an American, but he has a lot of ties with the Bill Gates Foundation, with the World Economic Forum. You can do your information and your research on all those things. But like we said, maybe, you know how they always say, keep your friends close and your enemies closer? Maybe that's why he's a part of it. He was on the board of a lot of these different organizations, and I guess he helped grow those companies, and that's why he's on the board of directors at Harley Davidson.
That it? So in that case, we talked a little bit about stock. That's the most important thing, and we're going to talk about stock later on, because that's actually how, if you want to change the company, that's how we have to do it. So what we're going to get into next is we're going to talk about DEI. What the hell is it? Everybody thinks it's all about pushing the white man down. Here's the meaning that I looked up for it, and we're going to flash it up here so you guys can kind of see it and you can read along with me. The backgrounds are, so we're mainly just going to read what the meaning is there, which is the highlighted part. Diversity, equality, and inclusion is a concept and a practice used by an organization to recognize the value of differences among people, ensure fair opportunities for everyone, and foster a work environment where all feel welcome and respected. Now, just reading that sounds pretty good to me. Everybody should be treated fairly. Doesn't matter what religion you are, or if you were a transgender,
Color,
or
race,
if you were a foreigner.
lifestyle.
Yeah, whatever you might be, everybody should be treated equally, and everybody should have an equal opportunity to move up through the company. We're going to talk about that too, because my company and her company had very similar programs to this, and we're going to talk about those too. So that's kind of talking about the diversity, equality, and inclusion. So, you know, you can put comments down here and you can say, you can look into more words and all that, and you can look into what he said on some interviews, and we're going to talk about the interviews here soon. So we're flashing that up now. Globalization means the speed up of movements of exchange, and in parentheses, of human beings, goods and service, capital, technology, or cultural practice all over the planet. One of the effects of globalization is that it promotes and increases interactions between different regions and populations around the globe. Now, what a lot of people are saying, because if you read Bible, we actually are a little religious, and if you read the Bible, they talk about at the end of the world that they're going to make one world nation. Does that what that says? Would you say that's what that said?
It's just trying to get everybody to get along. Like, let's all play nice in the sandbox. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's what it's saying. But it is leaning toward that way, but
that may not mean that that's what this globalization is what that was trying to do. It could be that they're trying to make sure that technology can get around to other countries. They could, just like they have manufacturers in Thailand, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But you got to look at this. You got to look at things as what it is, black and white. Don't look into something, because you can look at, just like, you know, something way off the subject. Just a few years ago, probably 20 years ago, the story.
Well, they said in The Little Mermaid, if you look on the cover, the castle looks like
a male
part, junk.
And so, but I mean, you can look into anything. I always used to tell people that, which we're getting off the subject here, but used to tell people that all the time about Elvis Presley. You know, when he first started, the Ed Sullivan Show the first time, they wouldn't show him below the waist because he was a pervert. And that's what they said. So that's why I said, there's always a perception that you look into something harder than you can. You can look at anything and find bad. You should always be going and looking for
the good.
That's right. And if you're a Bible person, that's what it actually says. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing. We'll talk about that. And then you guys can put questions down here. And if you've got any evidence of anything more than we have, you can let us know. So next I'm going to talk about redefining capitalism. Redefining capitalism is a concept that involves changing the way we think about capitalism and how it works. Some ideas for refining capitalism is included. And I didn't print all that and show you all that. But what is capitalism? That's what we have in America. That what they charge $20 for a beer at one of the bars in Sturgis, that's capitalism. They can do whatever you want. Whatever you feel like doing, it's your business, you can do whatever you want. How it works. Okay, it allows us to see that the solutions that capitalism produce are what create real prosperity in people's lives. And the rate at which we create solutions is true economic growth. This perspective also allows us to see that good moral choices will be one of that create true prosperity. So if you think about that, just go back and look at that word where it says good moral choices. There's a lot of it for you, a lot of you guys, where you think they're going woke. Good moral choices? Think about it.
Well, the whole world is always been progressive. Everything we always progress. We never regress, or we try not to regress anyway. So you have to think of that too. The technology and everything, is it good for us? I don't know. It makes our lives a heck of a lot easier, but.
So also, Robbie Starbuck showed you some clips behind him, and he really doesn't give you enough time to look to see what it really says. Well, what I do is I take my phone and I take some screenshots of that. And I'll flash a couple of these up here for some of the things that he talked about, because when I looked at it, it was like, so one of the things that he talked about is he got the Inclusive Stockholder Management Report. Well, his is 2020. It's right up there in the corner. See it up there? Mine's 2022. 2023, I don't know where it's at yet. They had the meeting in May. For 2024, you always do the year behind you to give a report. And what this report is all about is this is what they do at the stockholders meeting. That was one of the things I was saying, that if you really want to change a company, that's what you need to do. Buy you some stock. What does that do? That gets you into the stockholders meeting. And I will tell you a little bit about that before we get into this, because I've been to 2 stockholding meetings with SoCal Gas. typically the people that are there are somewhere between 75 and 100 years old. They're very rich people that don't give a rat's ass about anybody but themselves and their
making
money.
money.
That's all they care about. So actually we went there to we wanted to talk to the board, because we don't get to, as a union, we get to talk to the CEO, but we don't get to talk to the board of directors. Just like here, you can't contact Harley Davidson and say, I want to talk to the board of directors. They're only at the meetings. That's it. They have their own private meetings, but you can't get in those. You can get into a board meeting, but you have to own stock. Buy some. You can look up if there's an amount you have to have, but typically I think you can have one stock. I think it's like $36 right now, and you could fly into where they have it. It's probably up in Milwaukee someplace, and you could go to the stockholders meeting. You will be very shocked what they're talking about, but you can raise your hand and you can talk, which is what we did. We were trying to get more employees at the gas company. And all the old people were saying, no, we don't want to spend any more money. That's going to take money out of our stock fund. We're going to lose our dividends. We got to get our dividend check every year. You know, we got to have that money. That's what we're living on. So I stood up and I said, well, you know, our infrastructure that we have for the gas company is getting old. Some of it is
Falling apart.
Yeah, some of it's from when California first got built and they started using natural gas. So stuff is close to 100 years old. So the problem is a lot of that needs to be replaced. What we've had at the gas company is we don't really do preventative maintenance. We've done some, but we mainly fix the things that go broke, and they fix it temporary and they cover it up, and it's good for another year or two until something breaks again. So that's what I told the stockholders. I stood up, I announced who I was, told them I was president of the Utility Workers Union of America for the SoCal Gas, and I have one thing I want to just say. And we've had a couple of these in California, but it wasn't during SoCal Gas area. All we need is a major explosion. Kill 5,000 to 10,000 people, burn up from natural gas explosion, because when you have it, it's like a neutron bomb. It's just a big flash and everything's gone. And then what's going to happen to your stock market? Your stock's going to go to crap in a handbag and you'll be broke. And what did they do? They all kind of stood up and said, we'd like to make a motion for the board to increase the needed employees to build the infrastructure up. There you go. That's all you have to do with these rich people, is you've got to show them
how they could lose their money.
Right. And what's in it for them. Just like dealing with the company. I did the same thing when I worked with the gas company, and we're going to talk about that in some of this here, the report that they have about what they do with employees there. And so, because a lot of things, they're telling you, people are saying that you have to take this DEI course, you have to read these books, you have to do this, you got to read this book that's all about against the white man. And I've never read this book. I've got it ordered to see what it is. The other book actually wasn't a bad book. I didn't write the titles down, sorry. And but I'll put that up. Maybe I'll put it up on the video here to tell you what those two books, the titles were. Robbie talked about one of them. I don't know if he talked about the other one. I didn't watch all of his videos. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through this report, and this is what you get as a stockholder. You can download this off the internet, and all you got to do is ask for Harley Davidson's Inclusive Stockholder Management Report. And it's got a whole bunch of years there. You can go all the way back. I think it's like 2017 or something was the first one that I seen on there. And you can click on it. It's 35 pages. I downloaded it because trying to read all this on my phone was impossible. So we're just going to kind of thumb through a lot of this. One of the things that I want to really let you know, that they are a union company. All the employees at corporate non-management is a union job. We're going to talk about that later on. So they just kind of showed you some highlights of 2022, that they've got 96.1% efficiency. They've got over 667 hours of volunteering for challenges. They had digital learning items that consumed 2,750 employees. Now you remember that, 2,750 employees. And you're like, Harley made them do that. They have almost 6,000. It is a volunteer thing, and we're going to explain to you why that's a volunteer thing, because it's got to do with the union. If the company wants to do something like a DEI program, and it's going to affect the way the employees feel, how they interacted with it, or anything like that, that is a union thing that they have to bring to the board of the union and sit down with them, and they have to agree to this. So you've got 3 unions on the property, and they just signed ratification on April 8th of 2024 for a 5 more year contract with them. So to do a 5-year contract, that means you're pretty happy with what's going on at the workforce. Because if not, I would do a 1-year contract so I could go back in there and try to beat them up next time.
Yep.
So that's the idea. Think about that. There's unions on the property. Maybe some of you haven't had unions on your property. I've worked 2 places that had unions. I actually worked for in the automotive, and I was a Teamster. And that was my first job I had. It wasn't there very long, it was just a part-time job, but I was a Teamster. And then I was a utility worker. I was there for 17 years. So I had a lot of dealing with the union, and I was in the union, and I was president of the union, so I was in charge of the union for 3 years. So we dealt with a lot of these issues that when the company wanted to bring, and we're going to talk about that after I get done with this, that we had that in our workplace. They didn't call it DEI, but it was very similar to this. If some of you think about this, if we don't get gigged for saying this, somebody brought it up the other day. If you're anywhere older, 60s, 70s, what was the main topic that they always set you down for? Sexual harassment. Because women were coming into the workforce. You were getting a lot of men and women working together. When you're talking about the diversity, equality, and inclusion, that can be also mixed in with that. Because you want to treat everybody like a coworker. Not as she's a woman and I'm a man and I want to say some weird things to her or tell her a funny joke that's a sexual joke. She might be offended and I could get fired for that. So that's one of the things. So just some of the information that they had. There's several, like I said, there's a lot of information here. They talk about their support of people, their highlights, who everybody is. Right here on this one, in 2022, they had 6,300 employees at 34 different facilities. And what they're counting is 5 manufacturing, 6 office, 3 R&D and test facilities, which is in Naples, Florida, 1 in Lake Havasu, and another one in Wisconsin, 2 regional sales offices, and 2 Livewire locations, Mountain View and Canoga Park in California. So this was in 2022. So some of the things I'm just going to highlight on the next one here is further, faster, and together is what the screen we're going to flash up to you here to see. But I kind of highlighted this one where they said the planet, environment, sustainability. We take our environment responsibility seriously, and we are continuously reducing the footprint we have on the planet. You might be saying, well, there you go. That's what they want to do all the luxury bikes. By working towards reducing emissions from our factories in the U.S. by 50% since 2017, establishing a criteria for future carbon credits, and pursuing circular economy material use with all demonstrating our commitment to achieving rent zero carbon emissions for Livewire in 2035 and for Harley Davidson. A lot of people have been saying 2030. This is 2050. 2050, who knows what the hell's going to happen in 2050? That is the goal. The whole world thinks they're going to have electric cars by 2050. Maybe, maybe not. But I definitely can say tomorrow they're not going to have it.
Or even 2030, which is only 6 years away.
So on here they said, we recently announced plans to transform a central element of the Milwaukee campus into a green space that can be used by everyone, including employees and local community. The community park will be funded by the Harley Davidson Foundation as part of our ongoing contribution to the near west side of Milwaukee. So one of the things we're going to talk about there, they showed, Robbie here, showed on one of his videos that there was a transgender party that Harley Davidson put on. Harley Davidson rents their
Museum.
To
Anybody.
That's right.
That wants to rent a room.
Because you could be Black Lives Matter, you could be a Nazi party, you could be anybody you want, because if they told them they couldn't rent it, that would be discrimination and they would be sued. So just because there was a transgender party in the museum after hours, because you rent it or they closed it for the day if they paid for the whole day, anybody could do what they wanted in there. Probably as long as it's not illegal.
Right.
So there's an issue that I think that Robbie took out of context. He showed you that, but he didn't tell you that they rent out the building to anybody that's got the money. So that's just one.
So it wasn't a transgender party that Harley put on for the transgenders. Transgenders rented the museum themselves.
Yes.
From the museum.
So here's another screen here that we're going to talk just a little bit about. It was their 2030 goals here.
We aim to hire the best candidates while working together with gender parties in our organization at all levels of our area to achieve a workforce that reflects the demographics and geographics of where we operate.
So what's that really saying? Gender? Oh, they're gender, that's gay. We're all a gender. She's female, I'm male. So we're genders. Now there are some other weird ones out there, but that's not what they said. They said all genders. So it's whatever they consider to be all genders. And probably the odds are there probably is a gay person that probably works at Harley Davidson. Probably more than one. So yes, you want to make sure that they feel comfortable in their workplace, that people aren't ragging on them or saying slurs to them or anything like that. So that's their goal. Not saying that they're going to make the whole place be gay or transgenders is going to be running corporate Harley Davidson. Once again, they're looking into more than what's written here. You got to take what you see at face value, then you can stand back and you can look. And we're going to be talking about some of the things that you've also showed on this already.
My mom used to say, making a mountain out of a molehill.
So here's the other one. They got people first approach. So this was very interesting. In 2022, we expanded our parental leave policy to 8 weeks. That's for regular women that have babies. What? They allowed 8 weeks now they could take off?
Instead of 6?
With pay? Following the birth of a child or a placement of the child. So if you were going to have a baby and you didn't want to have an abortion and decided, I'm just going to let this baby be an adoption, you could take the 8 weeks off for having the baby and giving it up.
Yep.
So is that not what you'd want? We also extend to the U.S. employees the availability to free, confidential financial education, one-on-one support through our partnership with Operation Hope, a nonprofit for the purpose of organization dedicated to financial dignity and inclusion. So I didn't look up Operation Hope. I'm assuming it's more of a financial thing to where if you were about to go bankrupt or having trouble with your bills, that the company offered you this free service, which is another thing that the union probably negotiated with this. See, a lot of this you got to remember, when I'm reading this, you're looking into this. As a union representative and dealing with the company, they already asked these questions. It's funny that Robbie didn't go to the union and talk to the union presidents for these locals and find out exactly what's going inside, because the union would be happy to talk to you. Company may not say nothing, but unions love to have publicity. I never failed to talk about the company, because as a union president, you actually have the same authority as the CEO. So they can't do anything to me that they wouldn't do to the CEO. Also, the continued learning and development opportunities. Harley Davidson believes that in the importance of only supporting our employees with robust pay, benefits, but also to opportunities for them to learn and develop. All employees in 2022, we hosted a leadership and a cultural series involving 1,075 employees. Once again, there's 6,300 employees per Harley Davidson on this document, in 9 strategic topics, enabling them to learn and connect with others around the world while helping Harley Davidson continue its journey of building an Harley Davidson #1 culture. 40 leaders across the business participated in additional one-on-one coaching to support their leadership development. This actually sounds like management.
Training.
Yes. So now that's a whole different thing. They're not in the union probably. Some management is, but I would say probably they're not. So yes, they can go through a lot of different things like that because they're taught. They got to learn, and we're going to talk about that when we get to our point where we talk about our work, the diversity classes and stuff that we had to go to, which was mandatory. The other thing that they had on this was, so when they talked about this, that they had 27,669 digital hours that they did, and that was a 4% increase for people wanting to learn more. Now that's not saying are they learning about woke? Once again, I seriously doubt that because this all has to be approved by the locals. And these unions aren't small unions. The United Steelworkers is a big group. The International Association of Machinists is a big union. And so is Aerospace Workers is another big one. So these aren't little fly-by-night unions that, my son-in-law worked at a city and their union was useless. Really couldn't get nothing done. Well, here, they've got the power to get something done. So what we're going to talk about here is the Future Fit team built on trust. In 2022, we continue with our commitment to flexible workplace environment by not mandatoring days in the office while maintaining a hybrid mindset. In April 22, we updated our vacation policy, implementing a flexible policy that does not limit vacation time, but rather allow eligible employees to manage and flex their time off while meeting their performance objectives. We believe our employees need time to rest and recharge for maximum well-being. I would love that our company would have agreed to that. Yeah, she had flexible work time, and that didn't work. So let's see.
I actually look like I had more, but he always had more than I did, time off.
Next one we're going to talk about is building diverse and including workplace. So this one here has just got a couple little highlights, and hopefully we're not boring you, but the idea of this is we're trying to give you the facts. We're not trying to tell you that they're woke. And just leave it at that. Just believe me. Well,
You have to do your research. You have to dig deeper than just scratching the surface.
And so here, they said, at Harley Davidson, we continue our work to build and sustain the workforce of the future. We are significantly the CEO Action for Diversity Inclusion pledge, committing to taking action to cultivate and trusting environment where all ideas are welcomed and employees feel comfortable and empowered to have decisions about diversity and inclusion. So you gave me this book and told me to read it, and it's all about white power. And I said, that makes me feel uncomfortable. They just went against their document. Hello? And this is the company document. So you can go, you can download this, and if employees probably have downloaded this, the union definitely has it, because they were probably at this meeting when they talked about all this.
Workforce composition. In 2022, we made progress against our goals to increase women and underrepresented talent in management and above salary workforce from 35.7 to 39.7, an increase of 4 points from 2021. Women and unrepresented talent is also made up of 51.7% of our new hires in 2022.
So what I wanted to do, because I didn't know what unrepresented meant. Sounds like not in the union. That word means inadequately represented. So I'm not sure what they mean by that. It could be any group, I guess, that's there, where some people might say, well, it's only talking about the gays. Well, it could be talking about Black, Latino, Asian, could be any group that's out there, could fall into that if they're not a majority. So what does it all mean? I don't know. I can't answer that one for you. That's another one we'd have to do more research on.
So embracing and learning opportunities together. In February 2022, during our month of inclusion, nearly 1,500 employees participated in a two-part inclusion and belonging workshop with Sarah Lewis, PhD, where she was shared captivating visual examples of how racial justice and democracy have intersected the United States through the past 2 centuries, drawing upon her expertise as a historian, a critic, and a writer, and a professor. Basically, what she was demonstrating is how the world's changed in the last 200 years. That we have. Look at the technology we have. Didn't have TV 200 years ago, didn't have cars, didn't have motorcycles, didn't have any of that. So she's just recapping everything that's gone on and the progression that our country and the world has taken on.
So the next slide that we're going to be doing, like I said, this is 35 pages. We're not doing all the pages. We just picked a few of the things that I thought that would be things that you would probably need to know to make a logical, educated
Conclusion.
guess. So this is called Welcoming All, creating inclusive experiences for our customers. So the spotlight on Babes Ride Out. This is that group. For the last 4 years, Harley Davidson has been partnering with Babes Ride Our Bro. So it's BRO, so that's what their initials are, Babes Ride Out, to reach out and empower more female riders. Okay, so Robbie there ended up saying that they give to Planned Parenthood. Apparently, because of the letter that Harley Davidson sent out, the memo they sent out the other day, that we can pretty much believe that Harley probably didn't know what they were doing with the money. You got to look at this. I was really going to wait this to the end, but there's a lot of different people own Harley Davidsons. Not everybody is a male white, not conservative, and have Christian beliefs buying motorcycles. So just kind of remember that. I don't know what the percentage is. I don't know if, there probably is more men that buy new motorcycles, but you don't know that now. We see more and more women riding bikes. There could be a woman that's in this group that has relied on Planned Parenthood for different options. Maybe she didn't have an abortion. Maybe she went there for
birth control.
Yeah. So could be waiting for going in there and getting birth control. We don't know. But it is, Planned Parenthood is a woman's foundation pretty much. It's not really helping men. You can't go in there and get a condom or anything. But a woman could probably go in and get one. But there's a lot of other things going on. We're not Planned Parenthood supporters or anything else like that. But in this case here, it was a women's group. Harley Davidson had been sponsoring them. Once again, somebody didn't go far enough. They thought, hey, we're giving money to a women's group. That looks good. We're helping women. So that may change now because they're doing that. But are you going to discriminate to them because they give to that organization?
Well, if you look into a lot of products that you use, I was quite shocked. Household cleaners, detergents, you name it. If you look into some of the things that they support and give money to, just do your research. And you probably wouldn't be using a lot of stuff.
What you do, you look at this DEI, the number one person is 3M. So if you're a mechanic or you do any automotive work, diesel, anything, you're using 3M products. So I've used it, hundreds of them, thousands of them. Another one is Procter & Gamble, is another big one that's out there. They're the top two. And there's a whole list. There's hundreds and hundreds and probably thousands of the companies in the United States that use DEI. Just something to think about. So besides that group of girls that give money to Planned Parenthood, one of the other things that was brought up to us was, just think that corporate Harley Davidson, they have somebody that comes in and cleans the museum. And they've had this company for 5 or 10 years, doing excellent work, no problem with them, everything looks good. Next thing you find out, they're a transgender supporter. They actually have parties for transgenders. They support having kids come there, and the transgenders are reading books to them, drag queens. Is that Harley Davidson's fault that they didn't investigate the cleaning people? That's a question. Do you know every single person that you pay money to, Sam's that you go to, if you have a house cleaner, if you have a mechanic, that list would go on. I could go on all day long and rattle these names off. Do you know everything about them? Do you know what their personal life is? Do you know what they're doing with their money?
Do you know who they support?
Yeah. We don't. And you don't even think about that because I'm paying somebody, he's doing a great job. I don't really care what he does on his personal time. As a union president, I used to always say that. I don't want to know anything about your personal life. Don't bring it to work. If you got a problem, you need to come to me and you can talk to me hey, I'm going through a bad divorce, and then I can go to the company and I can tell them that to where maybe they'll lighten up on you. They won't work you quite so hard, knowing that you're having some tough times going on. Yeah. So that's what a union is all about. So one of the things I still wanted to say was this Robbie Starbucks. I based it on, we had a really great Sturgis. We did really, really well. Better than we've ever done any motorcycle rally before. But what I've noticed by what he's getting for views, what he's getting for content and all that, he's making a lot of money. And I'm talking $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for just this couple weeks. That just based on his videos that he's pumping out. If he was really doing this to help you, to educate you, there's a place on your video you can click no commercials. That way you don't make any money. I do that on some of my videos. This one won't, because we are trying to make money. So I'm not going to say that this video is not about, I'm trying to set the record straight, but it's not, if people don't watch this video, it's not going to kill me. This isn't our content typically. It is motorcycles. We are dealing with motorcycles and everything here, but it's not necessarily, which we have talked about. Just in November, if you've been watching our channel, back in November, Harley Davidson, there was an AI video came out, which you probably didn't know was AI. I knew it was AI when I started watching it. That said Harley Davidson was taking all the touring bikes and making them electric for 2024, 2025. And I'm like, first of all, I started watching the video and I'm like,
they're all V-twin engines.
Yeah, this is stock footage. So I called Harley and they're like, I don't know. They don't really don't want to, they're not much for reacting on stuff like that. They're almost like, let it go. It's not true. We're not going to do that. So then about a week or two later, another one comes out on Indian. Indian is going to sell all their dealerships. I just had a guy the other day say the same thing about Harley Davidson. They're going to sell all their dealerships because they can make more money by selling bikes direct. Actually, Indian already does that. But you're buying the bike on their website, but through that dealer. Whatever dealer you might find the bike. You might find it in Washington State, you might find it in Florida, you might find it in Milwaukee, but you'll be buying it and be shipped to your house, but you're going to be paying that dealer in that state. So you're not really buying it from corporate Indian. But it ended up happening when I called Indian and said that. Indian, that's what they said, we're going after this guy, or whoever it is. We didn't, because it's an AI channel, they had about 6 videos up, and I tried to check into it. I could not find out where this video came from. If it was from Iran, if it was from Alaska, if it was from Moscow. There was no tracking, trying to find out where this editor was at that made these videos. Well, about 2 months later, that guy's channel's gone. Indian got their job done. So Indian's a little more reactive than trying to worrying about what, like Harley Davidson does. Sometimes it's not worth slinging mud. Because that's why when I talked to corporate, I really wanted them to come out. The memo they sent out was not to say we give up. It's to set the record straight, to let you know that we haven't been doing DEI. We didn't just quit it because of this July 23rd. It was actually earlier in, I think it was June, I didn't bring the date with me, that the lady that was in charge of it, she left the company. And Robbie said she was still there on her LinkedIn page, but if you went to the LinkedIn page, she wasn't there. She was at a new job. She didn't even have that job even listed anymore, Harley. She just had her new job listed. So she wasn't even there, which once again, he got some falsification of evidence that he was using. So the next slide we're going to do is talking about preserving the planet. Got a bison on there. So the goal for 2030, and this is, I already kind of mentioned this already, was achieve net zero carbons for our live wires by 2035. Which I think they already got that once they built the live wire. I think they already had that. Live wire is still part of Harley Davidson. There's I think 2 or 3 dealers in California that sell them, but none of the other dealers have them. They have used ones they sell. But the other thing is, and for all Harley Davidson Corporation totally is by 2050. Once again, we can't say, oh, they're going to have motorcycles by 2050. Well, my odds are I'm probably going to be dead by 2050.
Be 90.
You know, we're looking at 26 more years. So they do talk about climate change and some things like that. I didn't really talk about anything about that. You know, there's people that believe that. People believe the greenhouse theories. People say that it's not. Some scientists do. And that's what America's all about. Everybody has a right to their opinion. Everybody has a right to what they want to support, what they want to do. It's America.
I was going to say that's why we live here, but I guess we were born and raised here.
The next thing is called reducing our impact. So scope 1 and 2 of emissions. Our scope 1 and 2 emissions reflect CO2 emissions from Harley-Davidson owned operations, including on-site fuel consumption, building, heat, process, and electricity purchased from third parties. Our progress since 2017 can be found in the graph below. So they show a little graph. And they're reducing energy consumption and process, minimizing waste to landfill, managing our building sources. That had nothing to do with, which they do talk a little bit about emissions on the bikes. They're trying to water cool them because if a bike runs cooler, it puts out less emissions. I don't know if you knew that or not. It's actually in here, but I already knew it before that. That's something Harley Davidson's been going after for quite a while.
Like I said, some of this seems kind of boring and repetitive, but you need to do your research and don't just look at just don't take somebody else's
word,
yes. Research it yourself. Even research what we say. If you don't believe what we say, research it yourself and look into it. Tell us what you believe, what you think, what you get from it, you know. And like I said, there's a lot of companies out there that give to a lot of different organizations. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. We just need to do our investigating. If it's something we don't believe in or don't trust, then we need to stand up for it and say this isn't right, call people out, hold people accountable.
So what we want to tell you we're going to kind of wrap this up now, because we've kind of given you all the evidence that you need to kind of try to make a judgment call. I'm not saying that Robbie Starbuck, everything he said was false. There is some items, just like the one that he's using, the document that's from 2020. Why was he not using what was from 2022, 2 years later? Company has a right to change what they wrote in the first one to change to the next one. You don't know what the new update is. The other thing is, why not talk to the union? That may be something that we may do. We may get I'll make some phone calls and see if we can get maybe one of them on a live. You guys can ask questions to the union, and that would be a great way to end a lot of this mess.
To clear a lot of the smoke.
To let you know, which it is. The CEO, yes, I would probably like to see the CEO go just because the way he treated us. But pretty much every corporation in America is the same thing. The CEO of the gas company that I had, the lady, last time I think it was a woman, I don't know what it is now, but she didn't know nothing about that gas industry. Why? Why did you hire her? Well, because it's all about the stocks, it's about the stockholders. Those are the people that are invested into the company. So it's just like us, Bob and Tam. We could go onto the Dow or onto
New York Stock Exchange
and say we want to sell our company. So what we do is we put it out there and we sell shares. We get a board of directors and get all that thing, which we're not doing. But then those are the people that I use their money to invest in the company. Now, one of the things we're going to talk about, one last thing I forgot to tell you before we did the wrap up, is what's going on in Thailand. So the Thailand manufacturer has been there for, I don't know how many years, I didn't look that up. They are making the bikes, they make a lot of the same bikes that are made here. They make touring bikes and all different kinds of motorcycles, just like they do in the York plant. But what those bikes are, they're shipped around the world because of the tariffs of getting in there. They're just so expensive. The stuff that comes out of the York plant, I'd say 90 to 99% of that stays in the United States, is sold in the United States. They're not shipped overseas. They're sold to us here in America. That's how we get it. What we're told by corporate Harley Davidson, well, let me back up one little bit. How many of you remember the Road Glide that they quit making it for a while? And everybody was up in arms. Why did they quit doing that? They don't know. Harley don't know what the hell they're doing. Blah, 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 blah. You know why? And this was a shocker to me. The machine, one of the machines that made one of the major parts, I don't know what part, I didn't ask, was wearing out. That machine, there was no longer a manufacturer to replace the parts for that machine. So Harley Davidson at that time said, well, we could run the machine till it breaks, or we can just stop it and try to retool. That's what they did. They stopped, and it took that long to retool. Some of these giant machines could take years and years to get built, because she worked in the radiation department, and the same thing. It took a while to get those machines built. They were not like they got them sitting on a shelf waiting for somebody to buy one. Because if they're making it for Harley Davidson parts, nobody else can make a Harley Davidson part on a new model. They've got the copyrights to older parts, they sell those. So that's just one thing that I just want to let you know, because I always thought, same thing, I just thought Harley said, screw you, they weren't going to make them anymore. So what's going on in Thailand? So what's happening in Thailand, the one big reason, there are two reasons that they're moving them. They're moving the 1250 engine. So they're moving the Pan American, they're moving the Sportster S, and they're doing the Nightstar. Those are all going back to Thailand, or going to Thailand. Why? One of the biggest reasons is they sell most of those overseas. Europe is a big market for it, so is Asian on those three bikes. They sell more of those over there than they do here in America. Remember, we're more on the baggers. We're in the trikes. If you went down to your Harley dealer right now to order a new bike, you don't want the one they got in the showroom. You want a brand new bike. Could be anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months to maybe a year before it shows up. Because of the production. It takes that long. There's that many people waiting in line to get a bike. Same problem if you went down to Ford to order a truck and you wanted a Pacific truck built, they're going to tell you the same thing. There just isn't enough. We don't have enough people. We don't have enough equipment to build them fast enough. What is Harley Davidson doing? They're spending $9 million on the York plant to upgrade to be able to put more baggers and tri-glides out. So is that worth it to move those overseas? Don't know. But are we mainly just buying the other ones? Now, if you bought a Pan American, then yeah, but it's a business decision. It's a decision that they had to make. Will they ever bring it back? I have no idea. Are they going to move us the bikes over there? Not in this century, probably. But down the road, who knows? Who knows if Harley Davidson will be in business? Who knows that Indian's going to be in business? Who knows that any motorcycle company will be in business 10 years from now? You just don't know the future, the people that buy, things like that. So that's one of the things we just wanted to kind of tell you about Thailand. So that way you know what was Harley Davidson's idea. They're just not trying to cut labor costs, things like that. The unions are negotiating on this. They have not settled. Last I heard, the unions have not made an agreement with them shipping the products over there yet. So they're going to have to come up with something to subside the employees. They don't want to lay people off because it's hard to find good help nowadays. And that's one of the things that I wanted to go back to, which I said it before, and I kind of wanted to say it towards the end here. It's not just white males, conservatives, and Christian people, all three, buying all the Harley Davidsons out there. There is other ethnic groups, there is other religious groups, there's all different kinds of people. When people talk about woke, that's kind of what they're trying to say, just like the transgender can that Bud Light made. That's why everybody was up in arms, because they're doing stuff they're endorsing little kids to change their sex. Was that? Not really. But that's a whole nother story. We're not going to get into that argument. But when you look at stuff like this, that's what you've got all kinds of different people in the workforce today. You've got women in the workforce, just like us. When I worked at SoCal Gas, we were mainly a male-dominant service department. We worked out in the field. We had construction crews. They were all pretty much men. And that's what we had. Well, we started getting women wanting to come into the workforce. So we started having these diversity classes to come up. And it was just for the guys. No women were in the class to sit down and explain to you what you did. And I was a union rep there. I was a regional officer at that time. And I agreed to this. I had no problem with this because I don't want one of my coworkers, because we were known for telling jokes And some of them jokes were ethnic jokes, or they were sexist jokes, jokes that weren't really appropriate for the workplace.
Blonde jokes.
Yep, things that you would normally, because you never know who's going to get offended. Nowadays, there's guys that could get offended about stuff because everybody's different. So that's what a lot of these classes are for that they have. Now, at my company, it was mandatory. They paid us to be there. It was something that was done in the morning. They did it. We reviewed once a week. We reviewed policy, and that was one of the policies that came up once a year. Diversity, how the company, and they told us the numbers of how many Mexicans and how many white people, how many African Americans, how many Asians they had in the workforce. So they just showed that we're very diverse. We're very diverse. You know, we're trying to do all this right for everybody. So when you look at all that, you know, is that not what Harley Davidson's doing? Are they, you know, people are saying that a transgender comes in, they're automatically giving them a job. You don't know that. You have to talk to somebody there. And some of this, I don't know who Robbie talked to, but it could also be people that have been terminated. As a union president, we had a lot of disgruntled employees that got fired, some for theft, some for falsifying documents. So that's automatic termination when those things. There's certain things in the company, you can't steal from the company, you can't, because we write documents up. We put all that on our document sheets. We put it on a computer, and all that stuff could come up in evidence in a court. If something would happen to a house that I was servicing or something like that, we're dealing with natural gas, that is. So everything had to be by the book. We had trackers on our truck, everything else. So you really had to do your job right. To where if I stole something or if I lied, you could be terminated for that. And so you knew that right off the bat. So in things like this, just like if I told her a dirty joke at work and she got offended and went in the office, I could get terminated. Could, depending on what I would say and if I could get out of it. But, you know, that's the way the world is now. Everybody is. We lived in California for 17 years, and that's one of the reasons we moved out of California, because you had to worry about everything you said. When we first started this class of diversity at the gas company, we were allowed to stare at a girl for 8 seconds. If you were driving down the road, you see a good-looking girl, you could look at her for 8 seconds. She couldn't do nothing legally to you. Now it's 4 seconds. And that's just in the last 10 years it changed. Because now they can say it's offensive. You're giving me the eye, or you're sexually undressing me, or whatever the case might be. But I mean, the world has totally changed. I don't know if I would say Harley Davidson has gone woke. That's my answer. Yes, we watch all these videos and it looks a lot. The other thing that he talked about, which I was offended kind of by this too, in one of the speeches, he said something about the Taliban. He's going to get Taliban on people. Well, one of the things in marketing, if you get up into higher marketing, they call it guerrilla marketing. So some people, when I talk to some executives, not just necessarily at Harley Davidson over this situation, the Taliban is kind of a word that's been out there for years, way before Taliban was really a big thing, that a lot of companies would say that in their documents. Say Taliban, not say guerrilla warfare. They both sound just as bad. But Taliban, we just know that they're bad people and done a lot of bad things. So probably not the most appropriate word for him to use. That was, out of all the videos I watched, that was the most one that I was kind of shocked by, that he was going to get Taliban on the workforce. And I'm like, what does that mean? You know, and so when I started talking to some of the executives at Harley and some of the other corporations I kind of called, they kind of said, well, that word is actually something we've been using for 10 or 20 years. And I'm like, really? And they said, well, the old word used to be like in the 50s and the 60s, they would say guerrilla, because that's kind of like back in Vietnam War. It'd be guerrilla warfare that they were going to do. So I'm like, all right.
It just means to be aggressive, I'm assuming.
So take it like you do. If you want to be offended, that's fine. If you're not, that's fine too. But the only way you're going to change corporate Harley Davidson is you need to buy stock in the company. And you need to go to the stockholders meeting and make a thing. I've seen a couple people that are writing letters to Harley, and it's not going to do any good. They're not going to stop people from buying. Because there's people on the internet right now that says, I don't care. Just like me. If they would go 100% woke tomorrow, I don't have a plan right now to buy a new bike. We just bought her a 2015 newer bike. Probably in our future, we'll be probably buying more used bikes. I don't have a new bike on the market right now. One, I don't want payments anymore. We're retired. So I don't have that as a market. Would I switch over to Indian just because? No, I don't really want to buy a new Indian. I might buy a used Indian. But so there's enough people out here that may not be in those three categories, may not be a white male, conservative, and a Christian. Because that seems to be what everybody's complaining about, because you're making the white people read these books that were no good. And you're going against our conservative beliefs that we have. And my Christian beliefs, you can't have transsexuals and all that kind of stuff. But if you actually read the Bible, what does it say about transsexuals?
Well, you're supposed to love the person, hate the sin.
That's right. So we're not supposed to be casting stones at them and doing all that. Their judgment day will come. If you're really a Christian, you should know that. So that's kind of where everybody seems to be going with this woke stuff. And one of the things I want to say too is 30% of the country is all that ever votes. Just like on our union contracts that I had for negotiating, 2 contracts I went through, right? Anywhere from 27 to 31% is all the people voted for the raises and the benefits that they had. Just like our politicians. All elections are pretty much within that scope of 29 to 33%, because that's all that votes. How many of you out there that are complaining that they've gone woke that you vote in every election? Because if you want to stop woking, you got to put people in office that don't. Maybe you should step up and volunteer to be a senator or governor or mayor or something in your community. Change this world. Been sitting on a couch and saying, they're going woke on me. I don't like that.
Do something about it then.
That's right. Boycotting it's not going to do it, because just like here, Harley Davidson, Black Hills Harley Davidson, in the 2-week period, sold 628 Harley Davidsons during that time. 100 more than they sold last year. So what's that telling you? That apparently they're not so woke to everybody. Well, see, a lot of people could care less. A lot of people look at this woke and they think it's more political stuff, that people are trying to get into the political minds and try to figure out what they're doing. Once again, the CEO and the board of directors, all they're really interested in is the stockholders and their dividends. Because if they would pull out, which we heard there was like 1,000 shares sold, but just like here, there's one company that owns most of Harley Davidson. See, if the stock, which would be great, if the stock would fall, if we could buy 51% of the company as consumers, we would control Harley Davidson. We would hire the new CEO. We would hire the board members, because and that's what's happening here. These are the people that are picking that thing. You can't do it. We're not going to get him fired. As long as the stock market keeps going up for him, it's 36 something a day, it's within $1 from the lowest point. They're not going to get rid of him. He's doing what they hired him for. Are they making bad decisions at Harley Davidson? Nobody knows the future. One of it, we're all getting older. And that's what I keep saying. The motorcycle rallies is probably days are numbered, because the younger kids, there's always people say the younger kids do ride bikes. Yes, some do, but not the big crowd that we've had over the years. So things are changing. The motor companies are trying to come out with different bikes and stuff. A lot of Indian came out with that new bike. A lot of people didn't like their new style that they changed the bike to. The problem is if you got an old style bike, you like that, that's what you want. And they're always going to try to update things. So with that, you want to say a little bit about what you had to do at your work?
Well, we just always had to take classes, different things. A lot of it was for reporting on the hospital if you see something that was done wrong. Or the last thing I had to take right before I left was on bariatrics, which is obese people. So you knew how to talk to obese people, what to say, what not to say, how to treat them, to make them comfortable, that they had a big enough seat to sit in, or, different things like that. So that was a mandatory class too that we had to take. I guess somebody complained to the hospital about the way they were treated, a person that was overweight, and so lo and behold, we had to take all these classes. So, it changed throughout the years. I worked there 17 years at St. Joseph's Hospital in Orange, California, and we had to do that too. There was a lot of different things that we had to take. One was sexual harassment, all different kinds of things throughout the years.
So that's just the point that we want to try to say. Maybe some of you never worked on the corporate level. She wasn't a union. It wasn't a union shop at the hospital. We were union, because I was a union president. But a lot of things like that is you still got, just like here, if there was an issue that they were forcing people to read these books or forcing them to do racist things or whatever you want to call that, there's actually a thing called the Labor Board, National Labor Board. There's one in every state. And that's where the union would go to protest their case. And then there would be a board charge, and there would be a hearing on it, and then there would be a relatively answer come out of that from the board. So that's why when you see all this stuff, once again, nobody's talking to the union. So with that, anything else you want us to wrap it up with?
No, you just have to, when you're watching videos, no matter who you're watching or what you're watching about, just do your own research. Be a smart consumer. Don't just jump on the bandwagon. Just like in politicians, you can say that guy's a child molester, or that guy rapes women, or you can say anything you want, But are you just going to say, oh my gosh, did you hear that? Did you hear that he was this or she was that? Do your research, do your own homework. You be the smart consumer. If you're listening to something and you think, oh my gosh, do some homework. We did this for you. Hope it enlightened you a little bit. You can agree with us. You can disagree with us. If you find something different that we had,
put it down here in the comments.
That's right.
You know, we're not saying, we're not agreeing that they are woke or they're not woke.
if you really want to be scared, go to a school board meeting and see some of the things they're trying to do
To your school.
to your schools and your kids and things like that. And we'll just leave it at that.
Oh, yeah. That is nothing to what Harley Davidson's doing.
So you make your decision. We gave you some facts. Let us know what you think, if that was all just clickbait or what you think. Thanks for hanging out with us. Hope you enjoyed the video.
We'll see you guys later.